the first thing I wanted to talk about was the series itself. Like
Okay.
right now, we're trying to use this as a substitute for the in-person talks that we're having, but I also feel
Right.
like since it's in a different format, we can try something new. Like, so what do you feel like the benefits of choosing like a recorded format would be?
So for me, if you're gonna do it this way, the advantage to this is you don't have to post the entire interview online. You can just post the good parts of it, edit the video, have both sides talking, and then you can just anyone can watch it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I have to take an hour out of my day to listen to Rishab talk. It's more like I have to take 20 minutes out of my day. You save
Yeah.
time. I think it's a lot better. And I just think the way that we're moving as a society with low attention spans, no one wants to sit down for an hour and listen to me talk, even
Yeah.
though I would, but no one else wants to. So that's just, I think this is a better format for how it's built in general. I think before it was just, I don't like the let me sit down, let me give you an hour talk because most of the time it just kind of boring. So
So I'm glad that we're doing it. We have the opportunity, and we're talking about things that I
right,
want to learn about. Like, I'm on this interview series. Like, I'm getting people who know a lot more than me, and I'm asking them questions that I want to know the answers to. And hopefully, like the
right,
students at Rutgers, they feel the same way, and
yeah,
we can cover like beyond the basic questions of how did you get your interview, like how did you get your interview, how did you get your internship, and we can go beyond that
right.
and try and understand like your entire journey, like how did you get to this point, and what were like the most memorable moments in the past like 4 or 5 years, and what are you looking forward to next time. And
I also like that better. Sorry to cut you off,
oh
but I
no,
also
go.
like that better just because talks are nice, but college students can only relate to the college experience because that's what they're so focused on. They're
Mm-hmm.
kind of in this bubble where they're working towards that internship. They're working towards getting good grades. They want that job after college, and just telling them about what someone is doing at work is interesting. It could like you could talk about it for 5 minutes, but a whole 1 hour talk on just what the person does, just what a company does,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like isn't as helpful. Everyone has their own path, everyone has their own journey. And I feel like that's more interesting to hear about for a college student than just an hour about what I do at X company,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Definitely. So now I want to start asking like a couple like questions about you, like how
Sure.
you got started, your experience at college, your transitions between like the different years, and like the transition
Right.
you're about to take tomorrow, right? You're starting as a software engineer at Capital One. So like definitely, I think there's a lot of information that people can take. Like definitely, it's not like I'm not saying like or I'm suggesting to like viewers, like you shouldn't be copying Rishab like moment for moment, but definitely take in his advice and see how you can
Right.
apply it to your own life. And if there's things like you feel like, oh, that's not for me, don't follow it. Like definitely, there's like some things that Rishab did that were better for him that aren't for most people. So, what were your initial thoughts like moving in as a freshman in at Rutgers? Like, was it daunting? How did you feel?
I was excited. I I came into Rutgers not as excited, even though it was the only school I applied to. I only applied so I remember in college I was applying to different schools and I was kind of just settled on Rutgers because like it's cheap and I just want a decent enough education to get me a job. And that was my goal. And I heard the engineering school was good enough and I wanted to be a computer engineer, believe it or not, because I used to spend a lot of time building computers. I enjoyed reading up on computer hardware. I played a lot of video games as a kid, did a lot of computer stuff. So I thought computer engineering would be a good fit. I could learn about both hardware and software. So when I came into my first year, it was a very fun time. I actually had a job at OIT before school started, and then on the first day of school, I was fired for having a personal conversation about my best friend's love life with him over the phone. Basically, the way it went was he liked this girl and he wanted my advice. So he called me on the OIT work phone in the basement of the Hill Center, and then they actually monitor every conversation. So I had this like 20-minute conversation. They fired me on the spot, and actually that kind of set the tone for my first year because I sort of realized that your expectations don't always meet reality. I came into Rutgers with high hopes, like I thought I would be able to join clubs and make a lot of meaningful connections, but at the end of the day, it was hard for me to find a club that really stuck with me. It wasn't until sophomore year when I started going to the cave more often and found out about RUMAD, USACs, and all these other clubs that kind of made me feel more like home. Whereas the other clubs that I was looking at, I kind of limited myself, and I was doing stuff like RHA. So I think going into my first year, I was excited, but I was also nervous because obviously it's a new start. It's a big start, and I had all these high hopes and dreams. I kind of came in this mentality like I'm gonna be the best, whatever, and that changed drastically. My mentality has kind of taken a complete turn since then in terms of what college is and my outlook. It wasn't just about grades anymore. It's not just about clubs. It's not even just about the people. It's just so that all changed as I progressed. But coming in, I was kind of just like cocky, wanted to be the best, wanted to do the best I could. I feel like a lot of college students are like that.
Yeah, so you emphasize like college students in the beginning, they just want to be the one, the best. They want to be the alpha male of like. But I
Right.
feel like what I've experienced actually, like that's exactly how I felt in the beginning.
Right.
But after my sophomore year, I start to realize that you don't make a lot of progress when you travel as an individual, and it's really
Absolutely.
important to do things in teams. So like when it
Mhm.
comes to like side projects and like maybe like classes, you make a lot more progress when you have someone else to work with. So what do you have to say to like those starting college right now who want to take on this journey and be the only one on this journey, and they want to travel alone? What do you have to say to those people?
Don't do it. Honestly, like as cheesy as it sounds, it's just dumb. It's just like you came into college, you're surrounded by 50,000 other people, basically. Like
Mm,
so many people at Rutgers, so many. Um, and I think you taking this journey alone isn't worth it. I mean, like unless you're like have like social anxiety, I respect that. Like I get it. Like some people have a difficult time approaching other people. But
mm,
I mean, it's also about getting out of your comfort zone. And I feel like that's what college is about, getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things, not to still be in that mentality of high school where it was like grind, 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 get into a top school, grind, 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 get into a top job, I guess, after college. So I kind of want to, I guess the thing that I'm trying to emphasize is not to have that mentality of just like grind, 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 get that top job. There's so much to experience out there, and if you're just in your small own little bubble, you won't actually know what's going on. I mean, this doesn't even have to do academic wise. This just even means like going out to Easton Ave to have delicious burrito at Taqueria, or just going out with friends. You don't even have to go to a party. Like I'm not really a big party person, even though I did go quite a few times during college. Um, I didn't drink, and I still had the most. I don't drink, and I still have the most had the most fun in college because of the fact that I was willing to try new things and experience. Right, like
mhm.
going at it alone isn't going to help you because you're just going to be looking at the world in one way. Right, there's so many different ways and so many ways that the people around you will challenge your beliefs. And I think that's really important. You talk about this lone wolf mentality. We can
Mhm.
apply this directly to CS as well. I mean, think about it. When you're working on projects in class, for the first three classes, like data structure, CS 111 data structures and comp arc, it's alone. But once you hit a class like systems programming and beyond, you start working with other people. There's a reason, because in the real world, you're going to be working with other people. You're not just going to be sitting behind your desk and be like, typing away on a keyboard. You're gonna have to work with other people, and so I think it's important to get into that mentality now, not just trap yourself in your own little bubble, and actually experience what what Rutgers and college has to offer for you.
Is that like something Capital One also looked at, or like companies in general, your ability to work with other people? And if they do, like, how do they measure that in a one-on-one interview? Like, I'm just curious.
They definitely look for it and they can tell, right? So, from my personal experience, they ask those behavioral questions like, tell me about a time you were able to explain a non technical concept. I mean, you were able to explain like a technical concept to a non technical person.
Mhm.
Um, and and in that case, that's a very good question because it shows the interviewer that you were able to talk to people about your work, that you're passionate enough about your work to talk it to people who are not in your field, and you can convey your ideas well. That question alone really emphasizes like, hey, I'm a well-rounded person. I can talk. I'm not just in my own bubble, right? I mean, think about it. That question really emphasizes different points, and you will notice that a lot in interviews. It's the tone that you have. It's how enthusiastic you are about your work, right? I can tell you right now that the person who just is in their own bubble, just like constantly trapped, looking at things in like that lone wolf style, is not going to fully appreciate or not going to be as enthusiastic about their work because they've never really been enthusiastic about their work to anyone but themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
I think now we've addressed like that. It's better, like it's obviously better to work in teams,
right.
but I think still people are a little confused still. Like, okay, how do I work in a team? Like, do I always take the lead? Do I always pitch out my ideas? And like, what technologies can you use to collaborate with people with code?
Right. I think this is all lessons I learned when I was an orientation leader, actually, because the whole point was not for me to lead, but for me to share the spotlight with other people in my group. I think that's the important part. When you're working with a group of people, it's not just about being a leader. It's not just about taking charge. Like there's always going to be that person, but that person is only going to be effective if they let everyone else in their group speak, have an open mind, and convey their ideas in a meaningful way. And so I think when you're working with a group of people, just take your friends, for instance, to start off with working with your friends, like go to a hackathon, right? If you go to a hackathon, you start off working with your friends, just sit at a table, come up with the next Facebook idea or whatever you have in your head.
Mhm.
Um, and you're thinking and just ask yourself while you're working, like, what is each person in the group good at? I guess it's because we're focusing on the more coding aspect of it. You kind of can ask yourselves like, what is what does each person want to learn or get out of this hackathon experience, and what are they good at, right? So like some people may be good at front end, some people may be good at back end, but some people want to learn front end, some people want to learn back end. So you kind of got to like ask yourselves and talk and discuss as a group, because being in a team means that you're willing to discuss. It doesn't mean that one person has to be the leader, assign roles. I don't really believe in that concept. I think everyone is a leader in a group, and you
Mhm.
have to allow other people to communicate and give them that spotlight, give them that opportunity to talk, because without it, you're not really a team. You're just kind of micromanaging your group, and that's not what someone wants. So,
Right.
and in terms of collaborating with other people, I mean, like in terms of code, you can do GitHub. I've had friends who've copied and pasted code through Messenger during hackathons. Um, I think that's really effective. Like sometimes Git can be a headache, and
Mhm.
hackathons are a time crunch. So go ahead and just copy and paste, send files over Messenger. Like I think it's hilarious. I think it's funny. In a real world, don't do it, obviously. But if you're at a hackathon and you're just trying to get something done, I mean, it doesn't matter as long as you can get it done, right? That's the whole point. Like as long as you have something to show. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. And you mentioned hackathons, right? So I feel like a lot of people do say, oh, go to a hackathon, learn a new skill. But at least for me, I feel like that's a little ideal. Like, it's definitely not easy to pick up like a new skill like iOS development or like React Native or React in 24 hours, especially if you're very new to coding and you're not like a seasoned veteran, you haven't been coding for like 2 or 3 years. Like as a freshman, like when someone says that to you and you try to accomplish that, you try to go to a hackathon, pick up that skill, I think for the most part that doesn't happen. What do you have to say to those who feel discouraged after like attempting that courses? I know it's a loaded question, so like answer like whatever.
I think I just want to kind of focus on the aspect of set your expectations lower. And I really mean it in the sense that I think everyone goes
Mm-hmm.
into a hackathon with the hopes of building the next Facebook. And that's the issue, right? Like you go in with such high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way you should go in with it is I have an idea, it's a small idea, and I want to build just this small portion of it first. Because, like, I can tell you right now, every time I've gone to a hackathon, my expectations have been up here. I've been trying to code up here, but this takes like a week or 2 weeks of nonstop coding to complete. Where in reality, I should set my expectations over here, where it takes a couple hours to code. So the problem with hackathons is almost bad in the sense that you're forced to pick up a skill quickly and you end up just copying and pasting code you don't understand. And that becomes the issue. So I think the way that people should approach hackathons, and I think this is like this is like a little too much to ask for some people, and that's fine. But I think the way they should go in is if you have an idea, try to flush out your idea a week before and spend some time just like looking over the tech stack you need for that idea. So for example, if you're trying to build like a website at the next hackathon, right? Um, Learn a little bit of React, enough so you know that at the hackathon you don't have to waste 4 hours learning how to set up React, the basics of it, and how to code a few things. You can just go online, understand some of the code, and just move and just copy and paste, and that's fine. The whole point of like hackathons is for you to learn something, right? But I think part of learning is being prepared.
And I would also suggest like for those like who feel like oh React is intimidating, like I felt like when I was first building a website with Rishab, like he helped me build the RUMAD website. Like I
Yeah,
thought like oh I have to learn React. I have to do it in React. But then Rishab showed me like you don't really need React if your like idea is like pretty small. It's like really like it's really not too complicated and you can just use plain old HTML and CSS
right.
and like a little bit of JavaScript. And I think like if you're not familiar with React and you're at Hackathon, um, if you want to build something quickly and fairly easily, I would suggest like starting with HTML and CSS, and then the next hackathon look at
I
React.
totally agree. I think people need to learn and get used to like kind of progressing in small steps, right? Like React is basically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript kind of all thrown around in one. And I think that's the issue. People are like, I'm going to learn React, but
Yeah,
then really you're learning three different programming languages all at the same time. And if you look at my personal website, if you want, you can just go to rishabchawla.com. I did not use any React. And I mean, I'm not trying to be cocky, but I've gotten a lot of compliments on it saying like, hey, it's like really nicely designed. Like, did you use React? I've gotten so many questions about that. And I just tell them like, no, it's just vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Why did I do that? I wasn't that comfortable with JavaScript. I'm really bad at JavaScript, but I love designing. I love front end work. I loved it when I was doing mobile app development. And so for me, it was like, let me not get carried away with the tech stack. The tech stack is supposed to help you. It's not supposed to work against you. I think that's what's the problem.
Rashab, you've been a TA
Yeah,
and at LA at Rutgers. Tell me a bit about that experience.
I I remember when I was sitting in my data structures study group, and Sakib was my data structures LA, and it was it was a lot of fun because like he kind of just motivated me to want to learn data structures outside the classroom. Like yeah, I think I should rephrase that. He motivated me to want to learn and apply these data structures in a different context outside the classroom, which is something that I wasn't really focused on doing. I was kind of just focused on getting a good grade. But that's the problem. Everyone is so focused on getting a good
Mm-hmm.
grade. But Sakib tried to put it in the aspect of like it's not just about your grades. You should like do more with it. So I think that's kind of what introduced me and wanted me to be a mentor because that kind of stuck with me, and I took that with me through my years of at Rutgers. I think that was the turning point for me. The day, it doesn't matter if you can sit in a classroom and memorize everything that's going on. It's about enjoying it and applying it outside the classroom. That really brings you the most joy. And
Hmm.
he did that for me. And that's why I really wanted to be in LA, because I wanted to do that for other people. I wanted to go out and teach other people. You when you're teaching, it's there's there's no better feeling that you're gonna get in the world of seeing someone understand something that you struggled to understand when you took that class. That's just how I can sum it up. Like, me struggling with expression evaluator, but being able to help people out and show them the ropes and them understanding it feels a lot better than me getting an A in a class. And so it doesn't matter to me in the long run. These A's and these grades I get. So yeah.
Um,
Okay, I think that's like enough about the learning assistant program. Now I just want to like spend like 10 minutes talking about Capital One. Like,
sure.
if you can think of a bank nowadays, like the first bank people might, I'm not sure if it's even a bank. I'm not sure. You can clarify that. But like the first company that most people think about nowadays, or like when they think about finance, are Capital One or Chase, or
Mhm.
because that's what people grew up with watching on TV. So what do
Right.
you like? So I wanted to ask a couple questions about like your experience. You interned there last summer,
Okay.
and you're starting tomorrow. What was your initial reaction when you got the internship? How did you feel then?
It was a big relief. Because my journey to getting an internship was longer than most people around me. So I got my internship my junior year, and I think I applied to 120 companies before I got the offer.
Funnily enough, I got my internship because I posted my resume on Piazza, and the recruiter saw it on Piazza.
Wow.
So I I I had the mentality of let me just throw myself out there. I had the mentality of putting my resume everywhere, personal website, LinkedIn, um, you know, Handshake, Piazza, everywhere. Like I just wanted to put my
Mhm.
resume everywhere. Went to almost every career fair. I just kept applying, and it was a good feeling when I finally got it because I realized that this was a goal I was striving so hard to achieve. But then I was talking to a student about this the other day. They're like, you know what, you have an offer, right? Like you're working full time. It's easy for you to say that having an offer is like not that big of a deal. But to me, it really wasn't because I think people oftentimes focus too much on the end goal and don't focus on the journey. In order for me to get to that point, I had to prove to myself that I was good at coding in the sense that like I had to build projects, I had to network, I had to reach out to people, I had to make myself better so that I could reach that goal. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people are kind of trapped in this mentality of like I just want the offer and then I'll be happy. But at the end of the day, I was more happy about witnessing all the progress I made. Sure, it was relieving because I wanted that internship so I could work a full-time job. I mean, like that's the goal at the end of college, no matter how much I talk about like teaching and all that. But you know, um, I think that journey from going from no internship to finally getting that internship was more meaningful to me than actually the relieving feeling of having that offer.
I want to start to like talk about like the technical aspect of Capital One because a lot of people do see it just as a bank and they don't understand like the technology that goes into like having those payments processed and like how everything works. So I want to first start off by asking like, what will you be doing like starting tomorrow? Will you be working on like an app? Are you going to be
Right.
doing back end? What's your role as
My
at Capital?
role is actually so I don't know too much about it. I've only
Hmm.
spoken to my manager about once, but basically
Okay.
I'm on the Capital One Eno team, which
Mhm.
is a financial bot that helps you.
Keep track of your payments, tries to verify what actions you want to perform as soon as you launch the app, what you would like what notifications to send you, fraud alerts, all that stuff. So it's a lot of machine learning focused. And my primary responsibility is to just do a lot of data pipelining and management. Not like pandas and stuff, not like data analysis, but like work with the machine learning engineers to stream the data in the best possible way and to make sure that's efficient so people will get the recommendations that they need from the Capital One financial bot experience. So like imagine that you're on Amazon, they recommend similar products to you. Same way when you launch the Capital One app, they want to recommend like these are the different actions we think you should take based on like your finances. So that's what I'm going to be working
Um, Another thing is when you first started at Capital One, you interned there last summer.
on.
Like,
Yeah.
do you have the expectation like, oh, I'm going to be working at a tech company, or I'm just going to be working at a finance company? Like, how has that perspective changed? Like, did Capital One, did your expectations meet what you were met with?
That never happens. My expectations never meet reality. I mean like it's just real.
Okay.
But before I got the Capital One internship, my goal was to work at a tech company, but I wanted to do something more on the social good side. So I applied to places like Hack and Y, and I was
Mm-hmm.
put on the wait list. And then I got the Capital One internship, and
Mm-hmm.
I at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna be working at a bank. But what I really appreciate about Capital One is that they were at every hackathon. And I remember I actually went to Capital One engineered mobile app development engineers at Capital One, so iOS developers, Android developers at Hack Princeton because I was building a an app. And so I always thought that Capital One had a strong tech culture because of that
Mm-hmm.
experience. So I
Yeah.
kind of went in with high expectations. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be filled in with what you see a lot at other banks, which is like outdated tech. And I was kind of right in that aspect because Capital One has publicly announced that they're trying to move to AWS completely. They're not trying to use um, servers and have like a what are those called, data centers. They're not trying to have their own data center. They're trying to streamline everything into AWS, kind of like Netflix has. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that aspect of it. But for me, like on the outside, it was a bank, but on the inside, I was just working on some cool technology. So I didn't really feel like it was a bank.
But I still knew that it was a bank because, it's a bank. Like I don't really know how else to word it, in the sense that like when you're working on a product, you realize it's financially focused. But when you're actually working there and you're doing the code, you're like, okay, I'm just working on tech, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
good feeling. So
Yeah.
it's not like I don't feel like I'm working on outdated stuff and all that.
And as an intern, did you really did they give you like a lot of real work? Like, do you feel like the things you learned at the internship are like things that you can like sort of practice on your own hone afterwards, or was the experience like, oh, these are only technologies that are useful at a big firm?
Kind of a mix of both.
Hmm.
So for me, my project was focused in Python completely.
Okay.
My goal was to. So when you're working at a big company like Capital One, you have many AWS accounts,
Okay.
right? Because like every engineer, like have you can't give every engineer the ability to access every single property on AWS because then that's a security vulnerability. And so what I had to do is I had to sort of create a database, a graph database. This was cool because it actually was data structures in practice because I used an
Hmm.
actual graph data structure. But I my goal was to map out all the different entities on on AWS, like different accounts that we had and what permissions all those accounts had to make sure that no account had more permissions than they needed because then that becomes a security vulnerability. which is funny because the data breach happened while I was interning. And if my tool was created, I have a strong feeling it could have prevented and it could have sought out the security vulnerability that happened to lead to the data breach. So that's something. So when you talk about like big company, small company, what I was able to take away was like probably wouldn't have been able to appreciate working with AWS on a smaller scale than I would have at Capital One because it's such a large scale. There's more to play with, there's more to understand, and it makes a lot more sense to use AWS. But at the same time, I still learned a lot more about Python, which is something I can use on my own personal projects.
Yeah.
So I think going forward, AWS, so like kind of sum it up, for me, learning the AWS aspect was good because now I can apply that in the future because cloud is the future, let's be real. And then the Python part was helpful because now I have a better understanding of Python and I could use it for my personal projects. Data analysis is good. So if you want to do like data science, machine learning, Python is the way to go. So like anything you really like, just learn it. It's very easy to pick up. And if you know Java, even easier. And you can do a lot more with it projects wise than you would be able to with Java.
Yeah. I think that's like a good place to end. And that's the end of the talk. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. Rishab and I will come around and answer them in time. If you really found value from this talk, drop a like. It just lets us know that you guys enjoyed it and we should continue doing this. The next talk should be out soon, so I bet you won't want to miss it, especially if you like this one. We'll be releasing it on our website and on our YouTube channel. And to find any of these talks later on, go check our website at rumad.club. They'll be posted there, okay? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.